The village of Thornhaven had paid tribute to the dragon for 300 years. Every winter, when the snow fell thick and the nights grew long, the elders would chain their best cattle to the black stone altar on the mountain. Every winter, the dragon would come down from his cave, eat what they offered, and leave them alone for another year. It was a simple deal. The village gave food. The dragon gave peace. No one questioned it. No one fought against it. This was simply how things were and how things had always been. But this year was different. The summer had been cruel. The rain never came when it should have, and when it finally arrived, it came too hard and too fast. The crops drowned in the fields. The cattle grew sick from bad water and died in their pens. By the time autumn arrived, Thornhaven had almost nothing left. The elders gathered in the old stone hall to decide what to do. They argued for hours. Some wanted to send riders to other villages to buy cattle. Others said there was no money for that. A few suggested they simply offer nothing and pray the dragon would understand. But everyone knew that was foolish. Dragons did not understand. Dragons did not forgive. If Thornhaven offered nothing, Thornhaven would burn. It was the oldest elder, a man named Varys, who finally spoke the words no one wanted to say. "We will offer a man," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "One life to save many. It is the only way." The room went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Everyone knew it was wrong. But everyone also knew it was necessary. They chose Cale Morrow. Cale was the village blacksmith. He was 43 years old, with strong arms and rough hands covered in old burn marks from years of working with hot metal. He had a bad knee that ached in the cold weather, a gift from a horse that had kicked him when he was young. His wife had died 5 winters ago from a fever that swept through the village, and he had no children to carry on his name. He was useful, but not essential. He was respected, but not loved. He was, in the cold mathematics of survival, the most expendable person in Thornhaven. They did not tell him what they planned. They knew he would fight, and they did not want to fight. So they put something in his evening ale, something that made his eyes grow heavy and his thoughts grow slow. He fell asleep at his table, his head resting on his arms, and he did not wake up when they carried him. Out into the cold night. He woke up on the mountain. The first thing he felt was the cold. It cut through his thin clothes like a knife, making his whole body shake. The second thing he felt was the chains. Heavy iron links wrapped around his wrists and ankles, bolted to the black stone beneath him. He pulled against them, but they did not move. He was not going anywhere. The third thing he felt was anger. He knew immediately what had happened. He knew why he was here, and he knew who had done this to him. "Cowards," he whispered into the darkness. "Damn cowards." He lay there for what felt like hours, shivering and cursing and waiting for death. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant and uncaring. The wind howled across the mountain like a living thing. And Cale waited. Then he heard the wings. The sound was like thunder, but deeper. It shook the air and made his chest vibrate. He looked up and saw something blot out the stars, something massive and dark that moved with terrible grace. The dragon was coming. Vaxarian landed on the stone platform with a force that made the whole mountain seem to shake. He was enormous, bigger than any building in Thornhaven, with scales that gleamed like hammered bronze in the moonlight. His eyes were amber, ancient and intelligent, and they studied Cale with cold interest. "This is what they send me?" The dragon's voice was like the rumble of distant thunder, deep and powerful. "One human? After all these years?" Cale's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Every instinct told him to beg, to plead, to promise anything if the dragon would spare his life. But something else rose up inside him, something stronger than fear. Defiance. "We have nothing else," Cale said. His voice came out rough and shaking, but he forced himself to meet the dragon's eyes. "You have taken from us for 300 years. Our cattle, our sheep, our crops, when the animals were not enough. And now there is nothing left." The dragon's head tilted like a cat examining a mouse that had done something unexpected. "So you offer me this?" Bexarian gestured at Kale with one massive claw. "One skinny human? This is supposed to satisfy me?" "No," Kale said. "It is supposed to end this. And this? One way or another." Kale laughed, and the sound surprised even him. It was bitter and sharp and completely without hope. "Either you accept what we give you, or you burn the village and everyone in it. But either way, this is finished. We cannot keep feeding a monster that gives nothing back." The dragon went very still. For a long moment, nothing moved. The wind died. The world held its breath. "Monster," Vexarian repeated softly. "Is that what you think I am? What else would you be?" Kale asked. "You take and take and take. You give nothing. You help no one. You are a mouth that never closes, a hunger that never ends. If that is not a monster, I do not know what is." The dragon stared at him. And for the first time in 300 years, Vexarian did not know what to do. The dragon did not burn Kale that night. He did not eat him either. Instead, Vexarian did something that had never happened in all along. Years of tribute. He sat down and talked out the chain still held Kale to the stone. And the cold still cut through his clothes. But the dragon seemed to have forgotten about both of those things. Vexarian circled the altar slowly, his massive body moving with strange grace, and he asked questions. So many questions. "Why do you humans build houses?" The dragon asked. "You know they will fall. You know the wood will rot and the stone will crack. Why do you bother?" Kale stared at him. Of all the things he had expected from a dragon, this was not one of them. "Because we need shelter," he said finally. "Because the cold will kill us faster than a falling house. But you could find caves. You could dig holes in the ground. Why do you make things with your hands that will only break?" "Because," Kale struggled to find the words. "Because it matters that we made them. Because a house we build is ours in a way a cave never could be." The dragon considered this. Then he asked another question. "Why do you humans have children?" "What? Children?" Vexarian's amber eyes gleamed in the darkness. "You know they will die. You know that every child you bring into this world is doomed from the moment it draws its first breath. And yet you keep making more. Why?" Kale thought about his wife. He thought about the children they had wanted but never had. He thought about the empty house he went back to every night, and the silence that lived there now. "Because life is good," he said quietly. "Even when it ends. Even when it hurts. The living part is worth the dying part." The dragon was silent for a long time. After that dot, the hours passed. The stars moved across the sky. And still Vexarian asked his questions, and still Kale answered them as best he could. The dragon wanted to know about love and loss, about hope and despair, about all the strange and complicated things that made humans human. And slowly, Kale began to understand something. The dragon was not asking these questions because he wanted to mock humans or hurt them. He was asking because he genuinely did not understand. Vexarian was old. Older than Thornhaven. Older than any kingdom or empire. He had watched civilizations rise and fall, had seen mountains worn down to hills and seas dry up into deserts. And in all that time, he had never understood why the tiny creatures below him kept struggling when the end was always the same. "You are different," Vexarian said finally. "Different from other offerings." "I am not an offering," Kale said. "I am a man who was drugged and chained and left to die by people I thought were my neighbors." "Yes." The dragon's voice held something that might have been amusement. "That is different too. The others always begged. They cried and pleaded and promised me things they could not give. You have not begged once. Would it help if I did? No. Then why would I waste my breath? The dragon laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together, deep and strange, but it was unmistakably a laugh. You are interesting, Vexarian said. I have not found a human interesting in a very long time. With one claw, the dragon reached out and shattered the chains that held Kale to the stone. The iron links fell away like they were made of paper. Kale did not move. He rubbed his wrists where the chains had bitten into his skin, but he did not try to run. There was no point. The dragon could catch him in a heartbeat if he wanted to. I have a proposition for you. Vexarian said, I am in no position to refuse anything. No, but I want you to agree anyway. The dragon settled back on his haunches, his massive form blocking out half the sky. Come with me. Live in my mountain. Let me study you, and let me teach you in return. Study me? Your kind fascinates me. You are so brief, so fragile, and yet you burn so brightly. I want to understand why. I want to know what drives you to keep going when everything you build will turn to dust. Kale stared at him. And what do I get? Knowledge. I have lived for thousands of years. I have learned secrets your people have forgotten, secrets they never knew in the first place. I can teach you things about fire and metal that would make you the greatest smith the world has ever seen. And if I say no, then I will take you back to your village and leave you there. Vexarian's eyes glittered. But I will not forget what they did, and I will not be patient with them anymore. It was not really a choice. Kale knew that. But there was something in the dragon's voice that made him believe Vexarian was not trying to threaten him. The dragon genuinely wanted him to agree. He genuinely wanted a companion, because underneath all that power and all those scales, Vexarian was lonely. 1 year, Kale said. I will stay with you for 1 year. After that, I choose whether to leave or stay. The dragon nodded slowly. 1 year. I accept. He extended one great wing toward the mountain peak, where a cave mouth glowed with distant firelight. Then come, Vexarian said. Let us begin. The first months were hard. Vexarian's lair was not made for humans. The tunnels were too large, the ceilings too high, the everything too big. Kale felt like an ant living in a house built for giants. The dragon had collected gold and jewels over the centuries, piles of treasure that glittered in the firelight, but none of it was useful. You cannot eat gold. You cannot sleep on diamonds. But slowly, things changed. Vexarian brought him tools. Real tools, not the crude iron implements Kale had used in Thornhaven, but ancient things made of metals he did not recognize. The dragon showed him how to use them, how to heat metal with dragon fire until it glowed white-hot, how to fold and hammer and shape it into things that should not have been possible. The secret is in the fire, Vexarian explained. Your human forges burn hot, but they burn dirty. Too many impurities. Dragon fire is clean. It burns away everything that does not belong. Kale learned. He learned faster than he had ever learned anything in his life. Within weeks, he was making blades that could cut through stone. Within months, he was forging armor that bent light around it, that could turn aside any sword or arrow. The work consumed him, drove him, gave him a purpose he had not felt since his wife died. And while Kale worked, Vexarian watched. The dragon asked endless questions. Why did Kale curse when he made a mistake? Why did he smile when a piece came out right? Why did he care so much about getting the small details perfect when no one would ever see them? Because I will see them, Kale said, holding up a blade he had just finished. Because I know they are there. A thing should be done right, or it should not be done at all, even if no one will ever know. Especially then. That is what separates craft from carelessness. That is what makes work into art. The dragon thought about this for a long time. He thought about all the centuries he had spent alone in his mountain, doing nothing, caring about nothing. He had power beyond imagining, but he had never used it to create anything. He had only used it to take. "Teach me," Vexarian said one day, surprising them both. Kale looked up from his forge. "Teach you what?" "How to make something. How to care about the small details. How to create instead of destroy." So Kale taught him. The dragon could not hold human tools, but he could shape metal with his claws and his fire. He could heat and bend and form things that no human could ever make. And slowly, clumsily, the ancient creature learned what it meant to build. The first thing Vexarian made was terrible. A lopsided bowl that could not hold water. Kale looked at it and laughed. "This is worthless," the dragon growled, smoke curling from his nostrils. "I have failed." "No," Kale said. "You have started. There's a difference." He picked up the bowl and put it on a shelf where they could both see it. "Keep it," he said. "Look at it every day. And when you are frustrated with your work, remember that even the greatest smith in the world started with something terrible." The dragon stared at the bowl for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I understand." Spring came, and with it came a choice. Kale's year was almost over. He could leave now, go back to Thornhaven, try to rebuild the life he had lost. The dragon would not stop him. Vexarian had promised, but Kale did not want to leave. He thought about the village. He thought about the people who had drugged him and chained him and left him to die. He thought about the empty house waiting for him, the forge that would never feel right again, the neighbors who would never be able to look him in the eye. And he thought about Vexarian, about the dragon who had started as a monster and become something else, about the creature who had lived for thousands of years and was only now learning what it meant to care about something. "I am staying," Kale said. Vexarian looked at him with those ancient amber eyes. "Why?" "Because the work is not finished." Kale picked up his hammer. "Because you still have more to learn. And because—" He paused, looking for the right words. "Because this is my home now. This mountain. This forge. You." The dragon did not say anything for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very quiet. "I have never had a friend before." "Neither have I," Kale said. "Not a real one. But I think we are learning." 2 years passed. Then 3. Kale grew older, his hair turning gray, his bad knee growing worse. But his hands never lost their skill, and his mind never lost its sharpness. He and Vexarian worked together, creating wonders the world had never seen. Blades that never dulled, armor that never broke, tools that could build or destroy with equal ease. And somewhere along the way, the dragon stopped asking why humans struggled against death. He started asking a different question instead. "How do I protect something?" Vexarian asked one night. "How do I hold on to something that I know will end?" Kale looked up from his work. "You do not hold on," he said. "You let go. You accept that everything ends, and you love it anyway. That is the only way." The dragon closed his eyes. "That sounds very hard." "It is," Kale said. "It is the hardest thing in the world. But it is also the most human thing. I am not human. No." Kale smiled. "But you are learning." The army came on a morning in late autumn, when the leaves were turning gold and the air smelled of coming snow. Kale saw them first. He was standing at the mouth of the cave, watching the sunrise, when he noticed the movement in the valley below. At first he thought it was a river, some new stream cutting through the land. But rivers do not glitter. Rivers do not carry banners. "Vexarian," he called, his voice tight. "We have a problem." The dragon came to look, and together they watched the army spread across the valley like a stain on the earth. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of horses, war machines that bristled with iron and magic. And at the head of it all, a banner Cale did not recognize, a golden crown on a field of red. "King Aldrich," Vexarian said quietly. "I have heard of him. He has conquered every kingdom in the south. Now he turns his eyes north. What does he want?" "Me." The dragon's voice was flat. "He wants me to serve him, to be his weapon, his tool." A low growl rumbled in his throat. "Or he wants me dead." Over the following days, messengers came. They climbed the mountain paths carrying white flags and royal proclamations, shouting their demands to the wind. The dragon Vexarian would submit to the crown. The dragon Vexarian would fight in the king's wars. The dragon Vexarian would bow, or the dragon Vexarian would die. Vexarian did not respond. He simply watched from his mountain and waited. On the third day, Cale climbed down to meet with the king's herald. He was a young man with nervous eyes and a voice that shook when he spoke. "The king offers mercy," the herald said. "Submit now, and you will be treated well. Resist, and you will be destroyed." His war mages have crafted weapons specifically designed to kill dragons. "You cannot win this fight." Cale looked at the army below. He looked at the war machines, the ranks of soldiers, the mages in their dark robes. He thought about Vexarian alone on the mountain, old and tired, and finally learning to be something other than a monster. "Tell your king," Cale said, "that the dragon is under my protection. I do not make deals with men who threaten my friends." The herald stared at him like he had gone mad. Then he turned and fled back down the mountain. That night, Cale found Vexarian staring at the campfires below. There were thousands of them spreading across the valley like stars fallen to earth. "You should fly," Cale said. "Leave this place. Find another mountain, another territory. They cannot follow you forever. No." The dragon's voice was quiet but firm. "I will not flee. They will kill you. Perhaps." Vexarian turned to look at him with those ancient amber eyes. "But I will not abandon what I have built. Not the mountain. Not the forge. Not you." He paused. "You taught me that meaning is made, not found. I have made my meaning here. I will not throw it away because it might not last." Cale felt something twist in his chest. "You stubborn fool," he whispered. "I learned from the best." The battle came at dawn. The war mages struck first, hurling spells that cracked the mountain and shattered stone. Vexarian rose to meet them, his wings spreading wide, his fire turning the sky red. The air filled with the screams of men and the roar of dragon flame. Cale watched from the cave mouth, helpless. He was an old man with a bad knee and a hammer. He could not fight an army. He could not stop what was happening, but he could not look away either. The dragon fought like nothing Cale had ever seen. He was grace and fury, fire and thunder, a force of nature that refused to be tamed. Soldiers died by the hundreds. War machines melted into slag. For a moment, it looked like Vexarian might actually win. Then the lances found their mark. They were long and black, forged by the war mages from metals that drank dragon fire instead of burning. One pierced Vexarian's wing. Another buried itself in his shoulder. A third struck his chest, and the great dragon fell from the sky like a meteor. He crashed to the ground at the base of the mountain, broken and bleeding, his fire guttering out. The army cheered. King Aldrich himself rode forward, his sword raised for the killing blow. Cale moved without thinking. He was down the mountain before he knew what he was doing, his old legs carrying him faster than they had moved in years. The soldiers saw him coming but did not stop him. What threat was one old man against an army? He reached Vexarian just before the king did. Cale planted himself between the dragon and the sword. His hammer hung at his side. His hands were empty. But he did not move. "Get out of my way," King Aldrich said. He was a tall man with cold eyes and a voice used to being obeyed. "This creature is a monster. It must die." "This creature," Kale said, "is my friend?" The king stared at him. The army stared at him. 10,000 soldiers, watching one old man stand against them all. "You would die for a dragon?" Aldrich asked. "I would die for someone I love." Kale's voice did not shake. "That is what humans do. That is what makes us human." The silence stretched. The wind blew cold across the valley. And somewhere behind Kale, the dragon stirred. "Kale," Vexarian whispered, "do not do this. You will die, then I die." Kale did not turn around. "But I die protecting something that matters. You taught me that. I taught you nothing. Everything I know, I learned from you." King Aldrich watched this exchange with narrowed eyes. He was a conqueror, a man who had built an empire on blood and fire. He understood power. He understood fear. But he did not understand this. A man willing to die for a dragon. A dragon willing to die for a man. It made no sense. It followed no logic. It was madness, and yet. Aldrich looked at Kale, at the steady hands and the clear eyes and the complete absence of fear. He looked at the dragon, wounded and broken, but still trying to rise. Still trying to protect this small human who meant nothing and everything. He thought about what it would mean to kill them both. He thought about the story that would spread, the legend that would grow. The king who murdered friendship. The conqueror who destroyed love. That was not the legacy he wanted. "Keep your dragon," Aldrich said finally. He sheathed his sword. "Keep your mountain. I will find other territories to conquer." He turned his horse. "But remember this. I showed mercy today. Do not make me regret it." The army withdrew. Slowly, grudgingly, the soldiers turned and marched away. And Kale finally let himself breathe. He turned to find Vexarian watching him with fading eyes. The dragon was badly hurt, but he was alive. He would survive. "You stood against an army," Vexarian said. "For me, I found something worth protecting." Kale knelt beside his friend. "And I protected it." In the years that followed, the mountain became something new. A sanctuary. A place of learning. Humans came from all over the world to study at the Dragon's Forge, to learn the secrets of fire and metal, to discover what it meant to build instead of destroy. Kale grew old. His hair turned white. His hands grew weak. But he never stopped working, never stopped teaching, never stopped showing others what one stubborn human and one lonely dragon had learned together. On the day he died, Vexarian was beside him. "I will remember you," the dragon said. "For as long as I live, I will remember." That is all any of us can ask. Kale smiled, his eyes closing. To be remembered. To have mattered. To have loved and been loved in return. The dragon stayed with him until the end. And when it was over, he carried his friend's body to the highest peak of the mountain and burned it with the cleanest fire he knew. The ashes drifted on the wind, spreading across the land they had protected together. And Vexarian sat and watched them go, and thought about what it meant to love something that could not last. It hurt. It hurt more than any wound he had ever suffered, but it was worth it. Every moment of it was worth it, because that was what it meant to be human. And somehow, against all odds, a dragon had learned to be human too.